Hi, everybody. Welcome to Conscious Conversations. I'm your host, Katie Augustyn. So, for those of you who don't know me yet, I'm the founder of the Transformation Center based in Westport, Connecticut. And at the center, in addition to the individual sessions that I do with transformation coaching and shamanic energy healing, we also offer a variety of classes, workshops, both in person and still on Zoom. It's very convenient for a lot of people. And we even have sound baths in the backyard during the warmer months. In fact, we have one this week in the backyard where our labyrinth is. So we're going to put up our contact info for transformationcenterct.com. And all the information is up there. There's a calendar of events. You can contact us through the website. And we'd love to hear from you. So, the center is really meant to help you discover who you truly are and let go of everything that you're not, your limiting beliefs, anything that's holding you back from consciously creating a life that you love. So thank you for being here. And I'm very excited about my guests today on Conscious Conversations. I have two guests, believe it or not. Yes. Sue Broudy and Mickey Nelson. Hi, guys. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, we're doing a little different because there's two of y'all, and so we have handheld mics today. This is a first for me, so let's hope it all works out, right? So I'm just going to read a little bit about Mickey and Sue before we get started so you can get to know them first. So first, Mickey. So for the past 25 years, Mickey has been educating alternative healthcare practitioners throughout Connecticut to the benefits of diet, lifestyle, and nutritional supplements as either complementary or alternative choices to traditional allopathic or medical care. Yeah, so we're going to put up Mickey's contact info so you can reach out to him. And he's now shifted gears a little bit, which is what we're going to talk about today.
Right.
Yeah. And, he recognized that End of Life Doula work is his calling. Yeah, and this is something new to me, so I hope you guys are as interested as I am, because Mickey recently completed his extensive coursework with doulagivers.com, which we're going to hear more about. And he graduated as a certified professional end-of-life doula. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Yeah. And Sue is also an end-of-life doula and has been for some time now. And she'll share her experience with that. She also does a variety of other things. She's a singer-songwriter, sound healing practitioner, and a few other things. And we're going to talk to Sue on her own episode after this one.
Yay.
So we're going to put up your contact info now, just so people know how to reach out to you.
Thank you.
Sue's been doing this for a very long time, and I'm really honored to have both of y'all here together today.
We're honored to be here.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's going to be great. All right, so let's just jump right in.
Okay.
I know I am always curious about why and how people get into what they're doing. So do you want to start, Mickey, with your...
Sure. And you must wonder about the kind of conversations around our house. We're very, very happy people.
Yeah, well, exactly, and that's part of why you're doing what you're doing.
Absolutely.
That's what I would
Absolutely.
imagine. Yeah.
Well, I was really inspired in three ways. Several years ago, Sue's mom, my mother-in-law, lived in a cottage on our property in Weston, and she was coming to the end of her life, and hospice had started to visit her, and I just ended up spending a lot of time with her, and it was really the privilege of my life. And she passed away in hospice after being there one day. The whole rest of the time was at our house, and I learned so much at her bedside. Part of it is she was a wonderful woman that was able to teach even at the end of her life, but what she taught me about what beauty there is in life.
What a gift.
Oh, what a
For
gift.
both of you, actually.
Absolutely. And then I also had the chance to sit bedside for my brother. And there was a completely, entirely different experience. There was a lot of controversy in the family about how to handle his end of life. Several people wanted to do extreme measures that didn't feel like they would really add any significant length to his life and certainly no quality. So it was a challenging environment, and I think that being there helped me understand that time is time, and when it's time, it's time. And he had a very good passing in at home with us being there and our dog Ryder as well.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's always an added bonus when you have your
Yeah. And the third inspiration really has been Susan. She's been doing this a lot longer than I have. And the stories that she tells and the emotion with which she tells it has really been an inspiration for me. So I'm glad to join her.
Yeah, so that's wonderful. I mean, nothing better than having that personal experience that you can then bring to other people, because you really, you truly get it.
Yeah.
I imagine you get that in your training, but to have that close familial connection as well.
There's a whole atmosphere around bedside. The doula giver really is kind of the business manager of bedside. Very few people really prepare well for the one thing that all of us are going to do. I mean, if you want a big client base, pick dying, because we're all going to do it.
Yeah.
And it's just not always managed as well as it could. Often tragic when it could be beautiful. And that's, I think, part of what doula giving is.
So where did the name doula originate?
I think it was actually coined, in my knowledge, from a man who founded the organization that I trained with. His name was Henry Frisco Weiss. He's now retired. He was a social worker all his life. He also turned into a Buddhist, and he decided that end-of-life work was his calling, and he sort of coined the term doula, end-of-life doula, and borrowed it from the birth doula, because it's like being a coach at the end of life as opposed to the beginning of life, like the birth doulas do.
Right.
And he's the one that trained me. International End of Life Doula Association.org. And Mickey's training institute is Doula Givers. They're quite different in their approach and their perspective.
Yeah, how so?
But this is a beautiful thing that they're quite different. Right. Mickey just said he is trained thoroughly. This was a very robust training that he received to be the managers of the care, to cover all of the details, all of the planning, all of the paperwork, all of the directives, all of the arrangements, all of the caregiving, the pain management, the everything that we should plan ahead for. He's like a care manager, but not. It's more robust and it's more particular.
Okay.
Where the End of Life Doula Association and Henry Frisco Weiss's vision was to create an organization that held a bar for very high service for people at the end of life, from an emotional and a spiritual approach, which is why I was drawn to it, because I have been in the healing arts and the spiritual realm, doing my work for so very long. And the same inspiration. I didn't want my mother to die alone, as my father had, alone in a nursing home. His thought process was nobody should die alone, and we should all plan ahead for what we want at end of life, and not leave it to the chaos of the last minute where we don't plan ahead.
Yeah.
So between the two of us now, our different approaches and perspectives of training, and now with the hope of having Mickey as a partner, because I have worked with a partner and I don't have her anymore. She has moved on to something else. It was hard for me to do this work alone. So him coming through with this training, now the balance is we've covered it all. We can cover it all.
Oh, that's perfect. Yeah, because that was going to be my question. Do you guys work together? And if so, how does that work?
We haven't sat bedside together. We share our experiences, which are often very emotional and also very practical. It's kind of a balance, but I would say I'm more of the business manager of dying. The families of someone who's about to pass are often the biggest challenge around the bedside. Some people just don't want to believe it's happening, or they are frenetic around the bedside. And, for the person that's passing, the better atmosphere might be music and aromatherapy and, a dog at the bedside. And there are also some practical elements of dying that people should know about that end up being perhaps chaotic when they could otherwise be just simply the way it is.
Right. So it turns out that you're also a marvelous help for the family, not just the person who's passing away.
Actually, that's my primary focus. I work with the caregiver, the designated caregiver.
Okay.
I'm a non-medical professional. I don't touch the patients. So
Without permission, anyway.
without permission, right? I can certainly hold a hand or things like that. And we try to designate the person most likely in the family to be able to holistically manage the bedside. And I work with them. And there's other aspects of dying. There's funerals, there's green burials, there's water burials, there's eulogies, there's obituaries. All those things are things that, if they're done well, they're a magnificent part of that experience, a memorable part of that experience. So that's really the place that I reside.
Yeah, so you take a lot of work on stress off of whoever the main caregiver. Usually it's a family member, but not always, I guess.
Yeah.
And I think that's beautiful.
If we certainly do take responsibility for it. Many of us avoid the responsibility, and we wait till the very last minute, and then it's chaos.
I mean, as a family member.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Even not only for ourselves, what our plans are and our wishes are at end of life, filed away somewhere that people can access, but for the family.
Well, that's interesting. You said that my oldest younger brother, I have 3 younger brothers, and the oldest one, who's 2 years younger than I, passed away this past year. And it was pretty sudden because he had, a cancer that was very fast. But afterwards, it was like his significant other was saying, well, did Howard want this? And we're asking her, well, did Howard want that? And if Howard had just told us or written it down or had somebody managing it,
absolutely,
think how much easier. I mean, it all kind of worked out because we all were on the same page, but I can imagine if we weren't, that would have been challenging.
There are things, I think Sue is going to discuss it, like your 5 wishes and end of life directives. If you put down what kind of care you want to have, what the limits are to care, what the limits are if you're obviously going to pass, how much intervention do you want, those all should be written down in advance. There's things like, if you're typically end of life patients are also on hospice care. If you're on hospice care, that's who you report the passing to, and they call the time of death. And you don't have to be under any pressure to call and remove the body. You can have the body in the home for a day if you want to clean them up and have a celebration with the body. If you call 911 and for an emergency to revive them because you've panicked, they're the ones that call the time of death, and they're required to try to revive a patient, even if the patient has said no extraordinary measures. So there's a lot of things that are actually practical and pragmatic, and if you make them go away, it's much easier.
Yeah, no, I can see that. Just to have that conversation.
Why do you think we don't plan ahead for this eventuality?
Why do I think that?
Yeah.
That's a good question, Sue. I would say because it makes us feel vulnerable and mortal and a little fear-based, perhaps.
Isn't that the truth?
Is that true?
I mean, we want to be here. We don't want to go.
We don't want to leave.
We're going to miss the people that go. We're going to miss them terribly. It's very hard to be a human and not be able to call somebody, and we just want to avoid it.
Yeah, no, it's true. And what I told my brother's, significant other, I had to remind her. I said, Howard is in a great place right now.
Yeah.
He really is, because, for a lot of reasons. And it's us who are left behind that are suffering.
Right.
He's not suffering anymore.
Right.
No.
So if we can keep that present, keep reminding ourselves, but it's hard. It is hard.
It is hard. We avoid it.
Yeah.
And think about it this way. If you were the one that was passing, the last thing you would want would be chaos and distress in your family.
Yeah, that burden for your family.
The last thing you would want.
Right.
So they're serving you better by having that kind of control and understanding.
And calm
bedside.
and peace. You know, that's the thing that comes to my mind when I'm
Yeah.
speaking with you guys is you bring this calmness, this peace that is really what I would imagine is really the best thing to have when you're in that situation, when you're about to pass and you want to be peaceful, right?
You do. You do. And you want the people around you to be peaceful and support you the way you need to be supported.
Yes.
You know, we plan 9 months for a birth, if not more, and then we wait until the last minute to think about how we want to die. It's such a sacred time. Can you imagine just being with somebody in peace that has lived a life, whatever that life is? A whole life has been lived. It's amazing. It's such an honor
It is.
to be with that soul
It's profound.
who is going to make a trip of a lifetime to get out. You know, it's pretty special.
Really.
Actually, it makes you appreciate life so much more. That's the whole point of this work, is you appreciate everything so much more. It's so beautiful
It is beautiful.
when you're aware of it, right?
Well, that's the first step. Yes.
The first step. I learned a phrase that I had never even thought about, you know, because although I had the privilege of those two dying experiences that I shared with you earlier, you know, everybody goes. And one of the expressions I learned was funerals. A lot of patients that are in that space where their families are in that space with them, loving, caring, actually plan funerals.
It's a trend.
Instead of a
It's a new trend.
Well, you know, I grew up in South Louisiana, and that was always happening in
Yes.
New Orleans. It was a celebration.
Celebration, right?
And that's what we had when my brother passed, when my dad, celebration of life.
It is.
Which I love that term.
That's
I
a
don't know
great
how where that originated, but I like that much better than funeral.
Yeah,
Or
absolutely.
funeral is good too.
Some people are doing it before they pass.
Right.
Choosing to be honored, or the family chooses to honor them so they're alive to see what people would say about them before they go.
Well, that's a great idea.
we can help the dying write their own obituary, you know, before they pass.
So they have a say in it.
So they
You know,
have a say.
I thought of that the other day. I was reading somebody's, actually, a friend of mine passed this year, and I was thinking, I wonder if I should write my own obituary. You know, if,
Why wouldn't
if
you
you-
want that?
well, if you're
Stick it in a file
I think,
somewhere.
you know, I'm not going to do it, but it's like if I were still a control freak like I was most of my life, I might. But somehow it's just not important. It's not important to me.
You know, well,
Yeah, but it
people
might
it
be
is.
to your family who are
the thing.
still here, and to your legacy, and to the
Then they
people
don't
that-
have to do it, you mean?
well,
They're
Or they
honoring,
want to do it right.
They're
honoring
honoring
you.
Right,
your wishes.
right,
They're
right.
honoring your wishes.
he can write, or he or she, the passing, can write their own eulogy. Now that might be something they really
Now
want.
that I might have fun with, yeah. I could write a little comedy skit. Oh, gosh. Well, so how does all of this fit in with a living will? What is the difference? I've heard that term. I think I have one. But what is that? How's it different?
Do you want to respond to that?
No, you can.
So, a living will is simply putting on paper and notarizing the distribution of assets, the kind of experience you want to have at the end of life. It's much more inclusive than just, you know, give this $100 to Tom and this, you know, it's really the experience of dying and end of life.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my understanding. It's different from a will and testament,
Right.
which is a
And
legal
different from advanced
document.
medical directives, and different from, you know, most imposed forms, all the forms that some people feel better filling out. But
Yeah, because it says like how you want to be either buried or not buried or cremated or whatever like
Yeah.
that.
I had
Yeah.
never even
And-
heard of a water burial. I didn't know what that was. A green burial. I didn't know the environmental damage that caskets and fillings do when you waste away in a box. You know?
Yeah, I think that's times have changed that we're more aware of the damage that we've caused on the earth. But that's a whole nother topic.
that's a whole
right?
other topic, and thank goodness there's
Yeah.
awareness around that.
So then do you guys have specific forms or I don't know, something that people can fill out to make it simple for them? How does that work?
Well, Mickey is the business manager of this, and his approach from doula givers covers all of that in a consultation. And he's very thorough. He doesn't miss one of the forms that may be of interest. I come at it from a different place. I feel that at the very beginning, just talking about death and dying as it relates to you or somebody you love, that one of the minimum things you should do, and it's easy to do, and I'm going to show it to you, is you go online, and I think it's $4 or $4.50, and you get this little pamphlet called The 5 Wishes.
Oh, okay. So you just order it from a website online that it's
Very simple. 5wishes.
just kind of generic.
The 5wishes.org. And it's
Pick it up at Staples.
yeah,
cool.
it's online, but it's also it's around, and it's a very basic 5-page pamphlet that asks you questions, 5 questions, and you should fill it out for yourself or help your loved one fill it out at the very minimum. This is my approach. This is a starting point, a launching point, but you can get much more in depth with the kind of management that Mickey is now.
Okay, but
able
this
to
is
do.
a great place to start. Get people at 5wishes.org.
Yes.
And is it never too early to do this, or what do you?
Anytime.
How's your feeling about that? Like, what if your wishes change?
Then you
a
can
new
you
form.
can make a new addendum. You can write
If
over,
you
scratch
remember.
out. Yes.
So when you're 50, you fill it out, and then you look at it again when you're 60, 70.
And by the way,
80,
they
90.
will. That's very astute of you because they will, and you should revisit it often. How you feel about it and how you've changed. For example, Mickey just thought, well, I'm just going to be cremated because that's what everybody does, and I don't want to take up space in the earth. I'm going to be cremated. And I came home with my training back in 2016, all fired up and ready to go. And I said, Mickey, do you know that you can have a green burial and be tree food? And he looked at me like I was nuts.
Oh, well,
Like,
okay,
I've never heard of
okay,
that.
You got me. I have to hear about this.
I've never, and he said, you could be tree food? I said, yes, you could be wrapped in a beautiful muslin cloth. You could be buried al natural right at the base of a tree with a little tiny plaque. There are places that are doing this. And he said, you're kidding. Well, so he needed to change his last will and testament because now he wants to be tree food.
So does it depend on where you live then? And,
Yeah, there are places that are around. And there's one in Connecticut. There's one in Long Island.
They're not
Couple in
everywhere.
Massachusetts.
Yeah.
They're not everywhere.
They're not
catching
everywhere.
on though, or is it?
They're typically in existing
A lot out in
cemetery.
California, as you can
Right.
imagine.
They're designated within cemetery areas, things like that.
Well, that's something to look into for people.
Yeah. Obviously, you need to have your last will and testament in place. All the things that we think are never going to happen to us.
Right. So it's just a matter of making what I'm curious about too is like it's not part of our culture here, at least in the United States. So
It isn't.
it's starting to shift with people like you.
Yeah.
But is it like in other countries? Aren't they much more aware of what happens and how to handle death? And
Some
of them
are.
Just celebrations.
Yeah, some are.
They're literally celebrations. India with the
like much more
pyres.
spiritual countries,
Yes.
they realize that the passing is only that. It's not the end.
Well, here's what I think happened. And this probably is definitely within the last couple of decades. We have become a nation or a society of we have to get better. We have to fix everything. We have to be well. We have to fix it. We have to be healthy. And all of the medical models are teaching that, showing that, and offering that. Get better. There's going to be a chance you can get better. So it has created this shift in the zeitgeist over these years to not look at death in the face, not realize that it's a natural part of life.
Like
A part-
avoiding death at all costs.
Avoiding death at all costs because it's subtly been trained to us. You can get better. You can survive. You can fix this. You can take another treatment. You can find something that will keep you here longer.
Yeah, that's
And nobody wants to face death. Nobody wants to look at death as a natural, essential part of life that we used to have in our communities, in our homes, in our towns. And we would help one another. And we would bury everybody locally. It was a communal thing.
yeah.
So some villages around the world are still very aware of that. We have become phobic about death,
Yep.
which is silly in a way, because it's part of life.
Well, it's could be part of the whole, medical establishment too, wanting to. I mean, they want to do good. Obviously, that's their goal.
Yes,
but
they
it's
want to
also,
fix. Yes.
They want to fix. They want to, not admit that they can't help you or fix you, as you say.
Right.
Yeah.
There's always a new treatment
Because
that
it's
could be done.
science, like
It's
science overrides everything else.
And so then what happens?
So-
Then you don't have quality at end of life. Then you're not in your mind because you're being over morphined or over drugged, and you're not present in your body to be able to communicate to the loved ones and say the things that need to be said at end of life. They just fade you out in a sort of a haze.
I'm sure there's a fine line between
yes.
what they call pain management.
Yes, it's called palliative care.
Palliative.
And we highly, highly believe in it and advocate for it. And a very well-trained palliative care doctor is gold because it's all about comfort. Comfort is king at the end of life. Comfort, pain management, warmth, having your dog with you, having an environment that's natural, so you can exit out gracefully. Not the hospital. Hospitals are no place to die. It's just not.
Sue and I have been in the alternative healthcare field for 25 years.
Yeah.
Sue for nearly as long. And that's not to dismiss allopathic, because there are things where you need allopathic care, emergency care, specific heart attack or something like that. But
they fixed your heart.
Generally, we believe that allopathic care has a place. Extending life for the sake of living longer is not one of them.
Yeah.
Right.
Different approach, different perspective,
Yeah.
like everything.
Yeah. Everybody has their own way of wanting to do it. And I wonder that in that case, like if most patients would opt for not, extending life if they're not going to be comfortable or whatever, productive, whatever word you want to use, if they're not really themselves anymore.
Right.
But is it usually the family members who want to do that?
That's the challenge.
Is that your experience?
Depends on what your wishes are
Right.
in all medical circumstances.
If you've had to express your wishes.
Yes.
Right.
And if you're able to. Right.
Hopefully you've done so before you get to that place of not being able to.
If you were looking at a patient at end of life, particularly when it's a lengthy challenge, and you were to ask them, what would you prefer? Another few weeks like this? Or please, let me have a peaceful,
Graceful.
managed
Yeah.
end. Yeah.
Well, I think that sums it up right there. And we're just about out of time.
We
This goes
just
by fast, doesn't it?
It
does
does.
go by fast.
Because we could talk about this all day. I
yeah.
could talk about death and dying all day. And a lot of people see me coming and they go, oh no, here comes Sue. She's going to talk about death and dying. So the avoidance factor is big around me, but it's okay. I keep trying.
Well, let's put up your slides one more time
Thank
so
you.
they can contact you. And if they have any questions, they can just reach out. Anybody, contact either Mickey or Sue.
Thank you.
Thanks, you guys, for being here.
Thanks,
It was really
Katie.
enlightening. I appreciate it.
Thanks for the
What a
questions.
privilege. Thank you.
Thank you. And thanks to our audience and Verso Studios. Namaste.